Yeah, the reason this conference is a little bit early, I usually do mine later in the week, but Goldy's going to take centre stage later in the week. He plays his 300th game, which is a significant milestone for any player in the competition, let alone, I think he's the 6th North Melbourne player that's arrived at that pretty special mark, and to think that he's done it at the one club makes it even more special for both he and the club. So, there'll be plenty of others that are better equipped than me, given I've only been at the club for 5 minutes compared to many others that the club can speak on Goldy's behalf. But what I will speak to is any 300 game player. It indicates that they've played at the top level for 15 years plus, and that is a superb effort, because the way the game is played nowadays, there's a significant evolution of the game that continues to change each year in terms of the style of play and the demands on the body, and particularly in the ruck role. Goldy would have seen a lot of change in the 15 years or so that he's played the game, but he's been able to evolve and adapt, and can still play some really good footy over that journey. So our hats off to Goldy and anyone else in the competition that gets to 300 games. It is a superb effort.
What do you think about the fact that he's done it as a ruckman? There's not too many that have been able to stay in the game and continue to play and perform at the highest level in that role, and then play 300.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we played West Coast and Fremantle the first 2 rounds of the year, and gave a fair amount of consideration to the Western Australian sides that have to travel pretty much every second week. And you look at a guy like Dean Cox, who was a ruckman, and he played a lot of footy. The rucks, by and large, because it's such a physical position, a lot of jumping required, a lot of physicality, they're probably more likely to not get to that mark. So for Goldy to get there is a really special effort. Dean Cox to do it when he was, I think he played over 300, Coxie, or if he didn't, it was close enough. To do it from the other side of the country is just extraordinary, really. But Goldy being a ruckman, taking a lot of hits over the years. You'll see him later in the week, or see him today. He's got a nice shiner from the weekend's game. They cop a battering, the big fellas, and he's been remarkable how he's been able to be so durable.
Your relationship probably with him is more been as an opposition coach. So can you talk about sort of having to deal with him for a fair amount of time?
Yeah, well, we quite often when we were in Hawthorn had to try to. He's got such a damaging left hand, and so you're always trying to work out ways how could you limit his touch on the ball, and when you've got guys like Cunnington underneath his feet, and for a big part of his rucking time at the club, he had Zeeble underneath his feet as well, and these Swallow and these types of players that were beneath his feet, trying to stop that supply from his hit out to those really talented players underneath him. So it was always a challenge. He's played at some good sides at this club. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that didn't equate to premiership success, but he was a pivotal part of North Melbourne in their really strong era, where they were regularly making preliminary finals and challenging really strongly, but not quite getting there. And Goldy was a big part of all that.
You're going to let him keep going for as long as he wants?
Well, that'll all depend on his form and where we are as a footy club. But right now, he's playing a really important role for us.
Just on last week's game, obviously Brisbane were very efficient going to your defensive 50. Is that a sort of a teething issue with your defenders, like the Kyle and Logue playing together for the first time?
Yeah. Well, exactly that, really. We've had a little bit of misfortune with Core had a really interrupted pre-season, and Mackay played his first game back for the weekend, and Griff Logue had a bit of an interrupted pre-season, and then missed the game through suspension. So we just haven't had that group together. And you just need continuity and stability in the back part of your ground in particular, and we didn't have that, and we saw that in pretty stark measures on the weekend. The ease with which they were able to, Brisbane are a good side, and we didn't help our defence because we turned the footy over with with overuse of handball in the middle of the ground that gave the Brisbane side access to the ball when a lot of our players were offside, thinking that we were going to attack with the ball and then quick turnovers. But so there's a combination of two things, and we need to fix both up this week. But that's not going to be. We'll try our best. We're really disappointed with the outcome of the game. We started the game really well, but right from the get-go, the ease of the Brisbane goals, even we were 4-1 in front, and the way that they got their second goal suggested that bad things are going to continue to happen for the rest of the day, and they did, and we just couldn't get it right. But part of that is just that we haven't got the continuity and stability in our back end just yet. But we're not there yet, but we're going to get there. It might just take some time.
Was there a supply issue there as well around the ball? Is that something you looked at from the review?
Well, we're coming up against a pretty talented midfield. One's the bloke that was best on ground's a Brownlow medalist. So even when we were 4-1 in front, he was playing really, really good footy. I think he got the first 3 centre bounce clearances of the game. So now we're coming up against a really, really talented midfield. I said in the post match, where we are now is where Brisbane were 4 or 5 years ago, and they invested in youth. They got a couple of guys, recruits in Lachie Neale himself and Charlie Cameron, who have both gone on to become A-grade players, but they came from other clubs. They got a couple of guys through their academy, and Harris Andrews and Eric Hipwood now, who are really, really good players and important to their structure. And that's just the evolution of every side and what they go through. And we're hoping we can fast track that. It was a hiccup for us on the weekend. Our 4 games prior to that have been pretty competitive. We're really disappointed that we weren't able to sustain the type of standard that we're required to be in a contest against the Brisbane side, but they're a very, very good side, and we need to learn some lessons from it, and hopefully we can do that over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Do you know how Jai's put up in surgery and how long he's
We're uncertain. He's had a plate inserted in his hand, and obviously the recovery from that surgery. There's the wound itself, and then there's actually the plate itself. So sometimes guys can come back from those in 1 week, and sometimes it takes 4. So we're uncertain what that will look like until he gets sort of at least probably 5 or 6 days post the surgery to see how that heals. We're healing first and foremost, and then make an assessment from there.
Could that open an opportunity for Jai's scoreboard?
Probably not this week, because we didn't even play him on the weekend up in the game against Sydney in the reserves game. It was just all part of his program that we'd give him a rest. He'd had a really strong block of training, and then wanted to play him for 3 or 4 games, give him a break, and then build again. So no, probably not this week, but he's a big part of our future. But that's why we've been really patient as well. We want to give him the best chance to have success when he comes into the side, and we've just got to make sure his preparation is ideal. And some of that is a really strong training block, which he's done, and now it's a really good match conditioning block, and he's part of the way through that, but not fully there yet.
Do you think Paul Curtis could have responded any better than what he did?
Yeah, well, I didn't see the game. Obviously, we were interstate, and our Reggies were playing up in Sydney at a different venue, so I haven't seen much of the game, but I've heard he played particularly well, and we know the quality of player that he is, and he'd just been in a patch of form where he couldn't have influence on games like he could. So yeah, given he's gone back and played so well, he'll be in the mix to get selected this week, I'm sure.
So is that the message? Sort of go get your hands on the ball, have a more consistent impact over the game?
Well, sometimes for young players, you're picking them because they're such an important part of your future, and you just think, we just need some time and some patience with these young lads, and just every bit of exposure to the level is really helpful from them. And then sometimes it gets to a point where it's actually a little bit of a relief for the player that they get a little bit of a circuit breaker and just go back and enjoy their footy, run around. There's a significant amount of pressure that is attached to playing AFL football at the top level, and these young players just aren't conditioned to that just at this point in time. So sometimes they just need a relief valve there, and sometimes the coach can do that by saying, listen, it's just time to have a spell and go back and enjoy your footy, and he did that really well on the weekend.
Jaden Stevenson seems like he's playing some decent footy, had some moments, some struggles last season. Is there anything that you've been able to unearth in him to get some more output?
Oh, just a belief and faith. I think he can play the game. He's a high draft pick and played some really good footy in his time at Collingwood, and at different stages here he's played some good footy too. But given his high draft pick, and there was a fair amount of publicity around the trade from Collingwood to North Melbourne. That attached itself once a bit of away from the game pressure that's attached to a player internally, whether it was us or the previous coaching regime here. I think they had full belief that Sleeper could be a really valuable player for us, and we're just seeing a little bit more consistency yet. But we're 5 games in too. We still think he's got even more that he can contribute, and hopefully that's the case. He's still a young man, and hopefully his best footy's still in front of him.
Aaron Hall's getting plenty of the ball in the VFL. Is he doing the right things for you to fit him back into that back six, or have you got another role in mind for him?
No, I think he's played some really good footy, and particularly over the past month. And he was a little bit the same as George. We wanted to give him the best chance. He's had a lot of soft tissue issues over the last 3 or 4 years, and we deliberately held him back. He had a little bit of Achilles soreness over the summer. So we deliberately held him back and got him fully conditioned, and then he's had this period of match fitness. And for the first couple of rounds, it was difficult to bring him into the side because he wasn't quite ready match conditioning wise, and we were winning, so there wasn't much change. But he's putting his hand up and he's nearly ready to go. So like Paulie Curtis, he'll be a chance to come into the side this week. We'll just deliberate on that later in the week.
On the weekend, we saw Zach Merritt and Tyler Adams given bans for sort of driving tackles rather than the slinging motion that other people have been penalised for. Do you sort of have clarity in what to tell your players with how to tackle to avoid getting themselves into trouble?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for the game. They've got these issues around concussion that they obviously need to be very, very mindful of. But we can't lose sight of the fact just how difficult our game is. And in some of these incidents, the Will Day one from Hawthorn, it was just in the process of tackling a player. If you're tackling him, you're sometimes going to lose balance. And the whole idea of tackling is to actually pin their arms so they can't dispose of the football, because the ball is in their hands. So you want to pin the arms, but if you pin their arms, there's going to be risk that if they fall to the ground because they lose balance, there's sometimes going to be head contact with the ground. It's nearly to the point where we're going to say, well, you can't even tackle the arms now, because everyone who gets tackled and their arms are pinned, they're at risk of hitting their head on the ground. So it's an enormous dilemma for the not just the medical side of the game, but it's an enormous dilemma for the players and coaches just how to go about it, because at the minute we're having three a week, and whereas it was very definitive what it looked like when there was two motions, grabbing a player and then slinging him. Now these are just motions of actually tackling a player, and 80% of the time the player gets away with it because the player doesn't fall over and hit his head. 20% of the time or less, then the player is at significant risk, and that's going to be a challenge for everyone in the game.
Did you know this was going to happen? Was it made clear by the AFL that it's not just a sling, it's now just if the head hits the ground?
No, I had no idea. No.
So it's essentially muscle memory for players. This is how they've been trained to tackle their whole lives. How are they supposed to alter this behaviour?
Well, just like it is with the bump, players will now be starting to question just how they tackle, and tackling is one of the features of our game. The game is going to consistently evolve around this, and we'll just see how it all transpires.
Is that something that you would like to do, specific tackling practice in terms of at training, like to change the?
We're probably going to need to, but I think the way players tackle anyways is pretty safe. This has all just come about in the adjudication of the way they're assessing these in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So we're going to probably have to make some adjustments somewhere along the line.
Gold Coast Suns have shown moments as this season and haven't been able to get the job done other than a good win against Geelong. What do you expect from them?
Oh, listen, they're a good footy side, and even 1 win and 4 losses, I think, aren't they? I feel like they're a much better side than only 1 win for the year. And usually their starts the years are really, really strong. And I'm not suggesting they haven't been strong this year. They've played some good footy without getting across the line. They were a little bit unfortunate on the weekend. They were, not so much in control of that game, but certainly making a great fist of the game. And they just got on top in the middle of the ground, the Fremantle side in the second half. With Big Darcy and Sarong and those sorts of guys. So we know the middle of the ground is a really important part of the game, which it is in every game really. But that's the Gold Coast side's real strength. So at the end of the day, we spoke about the weekend's game for us, but best on ground was Lachie Neale, and we didn't win that midfield battle on the weekend. And if you give any opposition the supply, particularly when we weren't quite in sync with our defensive stability structures behind the ball, then you're going to pay the price against a good side, and we'll pay the price this week for Gold Coast too if we can't have a really, really strong contest around the middle of the ground. So that's going to be a key part of the game, I'm sure. No worries. Good on you guys. Thank you.